and welcome everyone to Knowledge is Power. Magandang umaga to all of our viewers who have joined us on our Facebook page and on Kumu. My name is Yona Lucica Signo and I'm the founder of Empowered Virtual Services Philippines. Knowledge is Power was created so we can share the different learnings and experiences of inspirational and distinguished personalities so that more people can learn, become inspired, and be empowered. Now, the different sets of skills, knowledge, and wisdom that we have come from our years of experience or education in our specific fields of experience and expertise. And having that passion and fire to share our knowledge is the power that can drive and make this world a better place. That's why here on our show, we want to be a platform where people can take away new learnings and use them in their personal and professional lives. Now, to start off our episode today, allow me to introduce our distinguished guest for this segment. She is a multi-talented person, a singer, a rapper, a songwriter, spoken word artist, a music producer, MC, and a director. She creates songs in multiple languages too, particularly in Tagalog, Waray, and English. This Filipino-American singer and rapper uses her talent and expertise in hip-hop music to promote the Philippines' cultural heritage and experiences throughout the world. She is from Tacloban, Philippines, who then migrated to California, USA, with her family. And while pursuing her college years at the University of California, she had a chance to work with Six Bits and other spoken word collectives. Her music career became even more elevated as she released her mixtape, Lost in Translation, last December 2012. Then she released her full-length debut album and began recording and releasing more albums in the next few years. Amazing. Now, she's also created projects for the Filipino channel, Mix TV, Dash Radio, and even on YouTube. With her dedication as a Pinay singer, who she even co-founded a scholarship program for self-identifying Pinays in higher education, arts, and activism, also known as Pinays Rising. I am so honored that she said yes to being on our show to share her story and how she has wonderfully demonstrated through her career that knowledge is powerful and can amazingly change lives. To get to know her more and how her life was changed through her passion for the Philippine music and poetry, I'd like you all to give a warm welcome to our guest, Ruby Ibarra. Hello, Ruby.
Hi, Yona. Hi, everybody that's tuned in.
How are you going?
I'm very happy. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be in communication and conversation with you today on your platform. And you know, it was a no-brainer for me when Mafe told me about this segment, and knowing that it's about empowering and sharing knowledge and sharing inspiration for others. I mean, this is the type of work that I hope to accomplish with music. So I said, of course, and I'm already familiar with you too through Mafe. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Ruby. It truly is an honor. I know how much it means to you to be able to do the work that you do through music. And so I'm super excited to, have you on our show and for people to get to know you more as well. Now, I do have a few questions up my sleeve, but before I get started, I like to play quick games with my guests. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay, so this one is, I think you'll get it pretty quickly, but this one is called Guess the Filipino Song and Singer. Okay, so the instructions are, I'll read, I don't think I'll attempt to read the lines of the Filipino lyrics. Then what you have to do is just guess the title and who wrote or who sang the song. Yeah, are you game?
I'm game.
All right, let's start. So guess this Filipino song and singer. So the first line is Kung may itim o may puti. And there's
I'm so sad that we don't get to hear a sample from you to recite this one.
Oh my God. I said to the team, I don't want to offend anybody by mispronouncing any of the words, but are you able to guess the title of this song and who sang this, Ruby?
Of course, the rapper is Francis Magalona, and the song is Mga Kababayan, off of the Yo album.
Of course, there you go. She even said the album. Okay, for those who don't know, I wanted to share a fun fact or a quick history of Mga Kababayan. So in 1990, it was a song written by Francis Magalona and Jimmy Antiporta. It became a hit song as it promotes the Filipino people's culture, aspiration, and dedication. Francis Magalona also uses this song to remind Filipinos to believe in themselves, dream big, and work hard to obtain their goals in life. Francis M was one of the greatest master rappers in the Philippines, also known as the Filipino king of rap. And I believe also Ruby's inspiration for being a musician. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. He is the very first hip hop artist that my ears ever listened to. He was my introduction to hip hop, and I'm very fortunate that it was an artist like Francis M. Because, as you mentioned, through his lyrics, the messages that he delivered were definitely about empowering people and celebrating, who we are and where we come from.
Wow, that's awesome. And I'm just so glad because, I feel like this could potentially be one of those, the team song or something like that because of the message. And it's so in line with what we're trying to do at EVS. Yes. And so that's why it's really, really exciting for me, for you to be here. But, I know I read a little bit about your bio, but are you able to just tell us a bit about yourself, a little bit more, your advocacy and, your music career?
Of course. And thank you, by the way, for that wonderful bio. I felt like I saw my life flash before my eyes. And I all of a sudden I remembered my journey. But it's always kind of tough for me of where to start when, talking about who I am, because as you know, I mean, as with everyone else, there's so many aspects. I think there's so many characteristics, there's so many experiences that ultimately make up who we are today. And for me, I think, when I think about the overall picture, I think one of the main sections of, me as Ruby Ibarra is definitely my heritage and having come from a country like the Philippines. So that's where, my life journey starts. I was born in a small town called Tacloban City in the Philippines, and I lived there for about 4 or 5 years with my family before we migrated to the US. And from there, my father, he petitioned my mom as well as me and my younger sister, and we all packed our bags. We left the Philippines and we settled in the Bay Area, California. And I enrolled in kindergarten that very same year. I think it was maybe 2 months after we moved here from the Philippines that I had to start kindergarten right away. Yeah. And I just remember being completely just in awe of, all of a sudden being put into an entirely different country where the language is completely different, the culture is different, the traditions are different, and the people around me too, just community-wise. For the first time in my life, I saw a wide array of different heritages and, people from different backgrounds and walks of life. And to me, I think that was very eye-opening. Coming from a small town and all of a sudden being exposed to that here in the US, I thought, oh my gosh, there's this entire world out there that I had never seen before. Maybe I caught a glimpse of it from the movies that we watched back home, but able to see it right in front of me and to hear these languages and to all of a sudden taste all these foods too that come from different cultures. It was, I think, very formative for me, especially at, being 5 years old and trying to eating a burrito for the first time and, wondering like, oh my gosh, this is completely different from Filipino food. This is not chicken adobo. And I was just very glad that out of all places in the US, it was the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, that my family moved to, because it is a very, very diverse, location here in the US. And from there, I think it was also natural that I continued my love and passion for hip hop and music, because here in the Bay Area, hip hop is, is embedded in the culture. Hip hop comes from the Black community, specifically from New York. And then also here in California at the time in the 90s, there was really no way that you could step outside of your house and turn a corner and not hear hip hop music playing from someone's car. And so for me, it was also an introduction into my love and passion of music, learning the different artists like Snoop Dogg and Tupac and Lauryn Hill, and hearing them for the first time, and just being in amazement, seeing these different cultures, seeing these different hearing these different sounds. I think to me, more than anything, it was kind of an awakening culturally for me, and me just opening up my eyes and expanding this, this vast world that was out there. And from there, as I went through school, I also picked up in the passion and interest in poetry because I took classes like English and also literature arts that had a focus on poetry. And my school also had a very heavy emphasis on the arts. So I was very fortunate that the school that I was enrolled in, for example, as a little kid, I was already learning how to play the violin, and my mom bought me a small keyboard. So it was just music all around me in different ways. Like there was no way that I think that I could have avoided it. And from there, when I enrolled in a university at UC Davis, I also joined a spoken word collective, as you mentioned in my bio, and that group was called 6 Bits. And that for me was the very first time that I really got up on stage and performed in front of everyone. So it was a lot of, first time experiences. And from there, having enrolled in a university too, I was very fortunate that they had a course like ethnic studies available at my school. So I also, in this process of learning about the world, I also learned about who I was and where I came from. And, for the first time, I remember picking up a book called America is in the Heart in my Asian American Studies course. And this book was written by a Filipino American author. And I think at the time, growing up in America, I had never known that, there were such a thing as Filipino authors or Filipino writers and directors and creatives. And that also opened up my eyes to recognize that the arts is also a lane that, I can also pursue and also be an artist in my own right, and not just being on the other end of being the consumer or this fan, but also wanting to become an artist. And so for me, I think, whatever journey it was and whatever experience or location that I was in, it was always opening up my eyes and discovering new things and ultimately discovering people too. And I think, I carry that with me to this day. And that's why I wanted to start or co-found a program like the Pinays Scholarship Program, because I recognize that, as much as I enjoy writing stories, the story doesn't end with me. It doesn't even start with me. It's always going to be about community. It's going to be about others. How do we inspire others? How do we empower others? And how do we keep that conversation going and making sure that it's not just, I think, when you think about an artist or we think about a performer, it's, one person and one microphone and everybody's just listening to the one artist on stage. But I think we sometimes don't realize that it's actually a transaction. I know for me growing up and, seeing my favorite artists on stage, it wasn't just about, what they delivered, but it was also about, what I took from that. And, to this day, I always think about that at the back of my head. I think about how can we use music as a tool also to start a conversation.
Yeah, no, that's so powerful. It's so true, because if in all our experiences in music, it is one thing that sticks to our mind. It is something that we could be humming. It could be something like, like on a lighter note, like with the kids, I've got 2 small kids, and when they sing their particular songs, it sticks in my head, even though it's like, some like wiggle song or something like that. But that it just shows how powerful music can be. And so being able to spread words of empowerment and inspiration is so important, especially now. And I think, when you were describing how you grew up, I think I actually could see my childhood as well, because I migrated here at that same age and or a little bit older than you. And it's amazing how when you step into a new country and then you have to go to school straight away, which is what happened here, isn't it just eye-opening? It's like you just go, wow, there's so many of these kids who look completely different to us. And it's like English just comes out of their mouth so easily. And so it's really one of those things where I guess it's one of those things where it reminds us of how much we adapt and how much we have to adapt to our surroundings, but also how much that we also need to show the strength in the cultural diversity, because of it's a melting pot. The US, Australia, even Philippines, there's a lot of cultures now that's popping up. So I love what you do, and I love that you do that through music. And I know, music has been a part of your childhood. But what was actually, like, I know you touched on it a little bit, but what was your motivation to just keep going this music career of yours?
Thank you so much. For me, I think there were kind of two pinpoints in my life where I saw music as a viable option to pursue. I think the very first time was when I attended my university, and I joined the spoken word group, and joining a collegiate club. Of course, we're going to be doing performances on campus, so we would do the weekly open mics at our local lounge, and then eventually after that we would branch out and perform, do some small shows, in the downtown area of our college town. But I think what was the specific moment in that particular experience was when my spoken word collective had the opportunity to join a slam poetry competition, which was national. And I remember we had to travel to a different state, which was New Mexico. And I remember thinking, like, being on the plane, and it was me and the people in my group, as well as other students that were part of their own collegiate spoken word groups. And I remember thinking, wow, people can travel doing what they love to do. People are allowed to perform and be on the road. Like, this is an actual thing that people live. Like, and not even in the sense of, like, you have to be this big rock star, like, like the Lauryn Hills and the Nicki Minaj's, but even something a little bit more local as to what we were doing. And I think that for me was like, this, I wouldn't mind doing this. I wouldn't mind pursuing something like this. And you in this kind of journey, you not only do you get to do what you love to do, but you also get to meet so many wonderful people through making art, through being a creative. And you also get to visit places that I would have only dreamed of, I think, as a little girl. And I think the next point in my life that really solidified it for me, that made me realize that I want to do this for the rest of my life, was when I did my Circa 91 debut album, and we had a release show in San Francisco. I remember even, stepping back to when we were when I was creating the album, and I remember thinking, are people even going to relate to these types of songs? Because I wanted to create a project that was truly reflective of my experiences, and also my parents' immigrant experience here in the US. And I thought that at the time when I was writing the lyrics, I thought that it might have been too narrow in terms of the experience, that it might have only been particular to what my journey. And I remember arriving at the release show, and I thought, okay, this is going to be like, one of the shows that I've been doing. And I remember just seeing a line from the front door, and it wrapped all the way around the block. And then I remember we drove by it too, like me and my partner, he drove us around, and it just kept wrapping around the block onto the next street. And I thought, wait, are these people lined up at the correct show? Do these people know that this is for my album release party, or are they confused? And I remember entering through the doors, and I did the first song on the album, and it was Brownout. And people were reciting the lyrics along with me. And I had never experienced that before as an artist, where, people were actually in verbatim reciting the lyrics the same time as me. And me being an artist on stage is kind of like you have to be on self auto mode, where you just, you have to rap, you have to perform. But I remember I felt like it was kind of like an out of body experience, where performing, but in my mind I was like looking at the people, and I was thinking, wow, these songs actually mean something to them. And I remember, by the time we got to the middle of the show, and people were still singing along, and by the end of the show, I got to, I stepped off stage, and I got to meet a good amount of the people that attended the show. And a lot of the comments that I got was, people were very thankful for the album. They were telling me that, this to me feels like it was my experience growing up as a Phil-Am, or thank you for making me feel like I'm visible. Thank you for making me feel like I have a voice. And I think, hearing words like that is very affirming. It to me, it made me feel validated too as an artist, and knowing that I was on the right path and I was doing the right thing. And I kind of felt like this was also my calling. I don't think I'd ever felt before as an artist that what I was doing was impacting or influencing or changing not only people's lives, but specifically people's way of thinking. And ultimately for me, I think that's the biggest goal that I can achieve as an artist, is to change the way people think, and or if I'm not changing the way they think, if I'm inspiring them to start a dialogue around the topic that I'm talking about. And like I mentioned earlier, I think that's what music is all about. It's about the communication between the audience and the musician.
Yeah, it's I can just imagine how you would have felt when, you know, I mean, everybody always wants that feeling of validation, right? In whatever journey that they're in. And I can just imagine you look like I would have also would have had that same out of body experience. It's kind of like, oh my God, is this actually happening? And people are actually singing my songs. Like that's how, like, that would have been just a mind blowing experience, but you had to just keep together.
I had to just keep it together and keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as a Filipina rapper and musician, you know, what are the 3 essential things that you've learned throughout your years in the music industry?
It's definitely been an interesting experience, because here in the US, you know, when we think about words like, you know, representation and visibility, it's still very far and few in between, where you can turn on the TV here in America and see Filipinos on television, or to turn on the radio and to hear Filipino voices on the radio. It's still very rare. Like even on a broader scale of Asian Americans, that's still something that I think you know, mainstream media here in America still needs to address and still needs to fix. And so for me, you know, having gone through this journey and knowing that, you know, there's still work that needs to be done in terms of making sure that we're represented here in this country. I think that's one of the things that I've learned, is recognizing the impact of representation. And, you know, also, just for example, just you having this show here on Kumu, and, you know, other people that might be tuned in from different countries and seeing people that look like them and thinking like, oh my gosh, the host looks like me, the guest sounds like me. You know, there's power in that. There's always going to be power in seeing ourselves on these platforms, because I know for me, growing up and watching a movie, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the movie Hook. I remember there's a character in the movie named Rufio. He's played by the Filipino-American actor Dante Bosco. I remember being around 5 or 6 years old and seeing that movie for the first time, and I thought, oh my gosh, that character who's a warrior, he's Filipino. He looks like one of my cousins. And, you know, just seeing that again, like, you know, speaking to what you mentioned earlier about validation, I think when we see ourselves represented in the media that we consume, there's power and validation in that, because on one hand we feel visible, but on another hand it also opens up our minds and our eyes to make us learn that, you know, there is someone out there doing that, and that opens up the possibility, and also us wondering, maybe I can do that too. So that leads to inspiration. And so that's one of the things that I learned, the impact of representation. But also another thing that I want to mention, something that I've learned in my career so far, is also the importance of community, the importance of collaboration. I think it would be, you know, remiss of me to be here on your platform today and say that, you know, I did A, B, and C accomplishment all by myself. I did these shows all by myself. I created this album all by myself. That would be a complete lie. That would be completely false, because everything that I've done up until this day has always been, you know, in collaboration with other people, whether it's with music producers or show organizers. It's because, you know, of people that helped push me up and lifted me onto their shoulders so that I can get onto the next stage. For example, in this picture, it's because of, you know, people that I've worked with, like Faith, Classy, and Rocky Rivera, that I got to make, you know, an extraordinary song like Us, and we were able to make it that more powerful to have multiple voices on there. And so that's something that I've learned and I've also cherished, and that I want to continue moving forward, is remembering that, you know, it's great, you know, to say that, you know, we're on a stage, that we're doing things, but it's even greater when we're doing it with other people, and it's more powerful when we're doing it with other people. We can make a bigger impact and a bigger movement when we're with other people.
Oh my gosh, yes, Ruby, you are speaking my language. I'm like, yes, I'm totally with you. And you know, we always say this, how, you know, community is it trumps competition. You know, when we band together with like-minded individuals who are pursuing the same dream of like empowering other people, inspiring other people to do better and be better, like why not come together and use, it's like combined forces, you know? And I just love that that's what you do, and I love that you advocate that, because it is so important for everybody to see that. Because I think some people tend to think that in order for them to be successful, they have to do things on their own. And I think, you know, in this day and age, I think it's actually, firstly, it's much more fun when you do it with other people. But at the same time, it feels more fulfilling, right? Because you're having fun, but at the same time, you're inspiring and empowering others. And I just love that. That literally, when you were speaking, I was like, yes, girl, yes, I'm totally with you. Oh gosh.
So like imagine like you reach your goal that you've set for yourself, and if that was through a collaboration, the celebration is even more sweeter, because now you have 4 or 5 or 6 people celebrating with you, and you're all going, yay, we did it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's not really fun when you're just tooting the horn by yourself, right? Oh goodness. Well, what can you say about, you know, those who want to pursue their careers in music, and maybe not necessarily even in music, but if, you know, music obviously is your industry, but sometimes there are those people, they want to pursue their careers, but they feel hesitant in leaping for that career. What would you say to them?
For those people who might be hesitant into leaping into their passion or their career, I think one of the things that I've learned, you know, I mean, I'm not going to sit here again also and say that I've never doubted myself, or I've never hesitated, or even, because that's still something that I deal with to this day. I think that's important to recognize that, you know, whether you're first starting out or you're more accomplished, or you're somewhere like in between or the lower end like me, it's still like something like imposter syndrome, you know, still, you know, somehow creeps its way into your psyche and makes us think that I'm not good enough to be on the stage, or I'm not the right look that, you know, these producers or these executives or these managers might be looking for. And I think, you know, in moments like that, we just have to, first of all, you know, shake it off, and I think take a step back. And I think the important thing to do is to sit down, breathe, and think, why am I doing this in the first place? And I think if you can ask yourself that question, and if you can truly think about why do you do what you do, I think that will already answer why you deserve to be there. Like, for example, for me, you know, in moments that I've had the opportunity to be on larger platforms, or these great opportunities where I would have only dreamed of, you know, participating in moments like that, where I thought that I wasn't good enough, or that I wasn't accomplished yet. And I remembered why I do music in the first place, and that's, you know, to tell my story, to tell my voice, and to make sure that you know, stories like mine aren't forgotten. I'm all of a sudden reminded that there is importance in what I do, and that, you know, I have what my perspective is and what my voice is also going to be unique, and no one else out there in the entire world can offer the same story or perspective as I bring to the table. And I think, you know, for the folks that are tuned in, you need to kind of carry it with that similar perspective, and realize that there's only one you. There's going to be no other person that is going to be identical as you, like in terms of your experiences and your ideas and your perspectives. And that you have to remember, that's what you bring, that's what you offer to the table. And I think, you know, when you recognize that and you also own that, I think that validates your existence and validates your presence, validates your talents and your skills, and also reminds you that, you know, you do deserve to be there. You being there pursuing that is already making history.
Oh gosh, Ruby, that is so powerful. And yes, it's so true. You know, I think no matter where you are, I think imposter syndrome definitely creeps. And I think it's one of those things, and I love that you said that we have to recognize when we feel those things. And I think it's allowing ourselves to feel all the feels, whatever it may be it good or bad, allowing us to feel them. But from there, really reminding ourselves of why we're doing what we're doing and why we want to do what we're doing. And, you know, a lot of in the EVS community, and we're really trying to empower people who are in the virtual workspace. And I think a lot of people coming from different industries and different backgrounds now, they're trying to transition to the virtual workspace. So there is going to be that element of, doubt within themselves. And I love that I really, really love the fact that you've reminded everybody to remember their why. And I think it is that component that will really keep us going, to really keep us going, no matter wherever our journey takes us, left, right, because it's never a straight road, right? So thank you for reminding everybody about that. So yeah, can you tell us more about your scholarship program with Pinays Rising?
Of course, I would love to. And thank you again for highlighting the Pinays Rising Scholarship Program, because I think, more than ever, throughout the year, we've been doing this annually for the last 3 years. This is going to be the 3rd year this year. And this is something that is one of my passion projects. And aside from my videos and my album, I think this is the thing that I've done so far in my life that I'm really most proud of. Because, when I think about the scholarship program and the purpose of it, it makes me remember my experience in my childhood and growing up and going to school. I remember, being a little kid, my mom always, stressed the importance of getting an education. And that wasn't necessarily just so that, we can be a doctor or a nurse. My mom never pushed me or my sister to enter a certain career field. It was more so that we were equipped with the proper tools and resources to go out into the world and to do what we wanted to do ultimately. And so for me, that's what I also hope to inspire with the youth, with the next generation, is that education is important, because we want to make sure that we are also in these spaces where the resources are available, whether it be books, whether it be internships, whether it be work experiences, and because those are all tools that we can also bring back to our community. I think at the end of the day, when someone has a degree, it's not necessarily just because they earn an X amount of salary or wage. To me, a degree means a knowledge or a tool, something that you can bring back to the folks in your community, whether that's your friends or your family. And so I wanted to start a scholarship program because I remember back in 2018 when we first established this. And when I say we, I'm referring to the co-founder, Dr. Allison Tintian-Cocobales, who is a professor of ethnic studies at San Francisco State University. And we first met when we filmed my music video for Us. She was the one who helped me find a location for the video. And she's also the mother of the amazing, talented dancer in the video, Mahalaya. And so I remember she was the person that I contacted. I felt like she was the right person to collaborate on this particular program with, because she's a professor. And I know that she also has a very great passion when it comes to empowering and elevating the youth. And I wanted it to be specifically a scholarship program that gave out monetary funds. And the reason for that is, again, when I was growing up, I grew up in a single parent household. It was just my mother who raised me and my younger sister. And she was also the one who put me and my sister through school. I remember my mom having to take double shifts, overtime, working on the weekends, working 12 hours throughout the week, just so that I could pay for my books, my chemistry books when I was in college, or just so that I can pay for my dormitory or other college fees. And I really remember how taxing that was on my mom, not just physically, but also, emotionally and mentally, having to put in those extra hours at work. And, there was a brief window in time in my family where it got financially hard, just because both me and my sister were in college at the same time. So that took a toll on us financially. And so, I recognize that this experience that I went through, it's not unique to me. There's so many students out there who sometimes even have to be a working student just to get through school. And as much as possible, I think if I can help, alleviate that problem, just a little bit, even if it's just $500, as minimal as that may be, if I can help pay for one of your books this semester, that's still one book that's paid. And so this scholarship program aims to provide financial funds for self-identifying Filipino American students who are enrolled in institutions of higher learning, but specifically for those students who are in activism or also in the arts, because I also recognize that as important as education is, it's also important that we have a certain vision when it comes to, pursuing higher education. Like, what are you at the end of the day when you graduate? what are you going to do with your degree? What are you going to do with what you've learned? How are you going to take those tools and bring it back to your community? And so me and Dr. Allison thought that if we cater this towards students who are focused in the arts and activism, those are for sure tools, that tangible tools that we can bring back to our community and empower and inspire others.
Oh, I love that. How do you take the tangible tools to bring back to your community? I love that, because it really is about that. You know, you can make a difference and do things for yourself, but it's so much more value when you're able to empower your community after that. And I think, you know, that is another thing that I like to impart to our community as well, because, you know, we as individuals, we are able to make that impact. But if we're able to then influence our family and then our community, our local community, from there, it's that ripple effect, right, Ruby? It's about that ripple effect, and it just keeps going. And that's amazing that you're doing that through Pinays Rising. And you mentioned, and it reminded me of a conversation, that I was listening to recently. You said chemistry. So I want to ask you, is it true? Are you a scientist?
I am. That's that's right. So when I attended my UC Davis, I majored in biochemistry and molecular biology. I know it's super nerdy and not hip hop at all. I'm losing my rapper points right now, but yeah, I majored in biochem, and I ended up becoming a scientist. I went into the biotech field, and I worked for a biotech company, and now we've been doing research around COVID this last 15 months, pretty much.
Wow! So you're playing a part in like the vaccine and all of those things to fight COVID. Is that right?
Yeah, the vaccine and
wow. That's amazing. Oh my God. Seriously, scientist by day and a rapper the parts of the day as well. Like I don't like to say day and night, but because I think you're both at the same time. But that's amazing. Oh my gosh. That to me is like, wow, you just, that's two completely different hats, but I love that you're wearing both. That is amazing. Now before you go, do you have any messages to impart about knowledge and its power? And do you have any events that you'd like to promote?
Of course. So for everybody that's tuned in, I will be at the Tribeca Film Festival this weekend in New York City. On June 12th, we'll be premiering the film Asking for It, in which I do the music for the film. I also appear in the film. So I'm very excited for that. This is the first time that I'm appearing in a movie. The film features Alexandra Shipp, Kiersey Clements, as well as Vanessa Hudgens, who is, Philam idol. She's amazing. And in addition to that, I'm also have been very hard at work on my sophomore album, which I'll be releasing this fall. And of course, after the release of the album, I'll be working on my touring the new project. In between that, I'm also doing a few collaborations that I think I can't speak on yet, but there's definitely a lot of new music, along the way throughout this year. But yeah, the message that I'd like to impart on the viewers, I think, the most important thing for me when I talk about a message in terms of inspiring others and remembering our worth, I think with that comes along with just don't feel like you have to compromise for anyone. And I think for me, I think that applies to any field, whether you're in the arts or you're working in the office. And it's just knowing, I think ultimately what that means is just knowing your value and knowing your worth, especially for the women that are tuned in right now, for all the Filipinas, all the Pinays that are tuned in. Please always remember the value that you bring to the table and what you have to share, and the knowledge that you also have to impart out there in whatever field that you're in. And also remembering not to compromise, remembering that your authentic self, your true self, is what makes you beautiful. It's what makes you unique and what makes you strong too. And I think, with that is also celebrating and also remembering where we come from. I know for me, I talk about being Filipino a lot in my music, but that is always going to be part of my identity. I understand that, whether I'm in New York, whether I'm here in California, whether I go back to the Philippines, that's always going to be part of my identity, always going to be something that, I carry not only on my back, but also in my heart, because that is, my culture, that is my community, that is my family, being Filipino. And so for me, I think it's important, especially for the Filipino Americans or Filipino Australians that might be tuned in, is to always remember where we come from and to celebrate that, but do it in a way where we're also, creating that bridge for our kababayans back home in the Philippines. And I think for me as a Philam, I'm always cognizant of the fact that I'm very privileged, having grown up here in America. Being a Filipino American is a different experience than being a Filipino in the Philippines. And so it's not lost on me that it's important that in whatever space that I'm in, or whatever accomplishment or whatever goal I'm trying to do next, is that at the end of the day, whatever wins that whatever wins and whatever gains that I make, it's going to be reflective and also representative of my kababayans back home. And a win for me is a win for all of us. And likewise, a win for you, Yona, is also a win for me. And I think that also, goes back to our conversation earlier about community. It's not about you, specifically you. It's not just specifically about me. This is about all of us. And I think at the end of the day, if you remember that whatever line of work that we do, whatever words that we say, that it's like what you mentioned, it's a ripple effect. Whatever energy you put out to the world, it affects the next person, who then affects the next person. And I think, just being cognizant of that, remembering that, there's a world, outside and around us, and whatever positive energy or whatever energy that you bring out to the world, it also affects, those that are around you.
So true. Wow, Ruby, thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying yes to being here on the show. I'm so honored that, you made the time, and for sharing with us your experiences, your talent, your words of wisdom. I really feel that today was so powerful, and how fitting it is that the segment is Knowledge is Power. So thank you again, Ruby. And I know I'll be seeing you, especially on Kumu. So thank you. And I'll see you again soon, Ruby.
I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for having me on your platform.
Of course. You're welcome. Wow. Oh my goodness. How amazing. I hope you're all inspired and empowered by our fantastic guest, Ruby Ibarra. Ruby demonstrated that when knowledge and talent are paired with life experiences, dedication, and passion, one can spark change. And change not only on how we think, but change in how we act. And that itself is a power that we can hold to make this world a better place. We all have a choice whether we want to be better. So we need to choose to do, to say, to act, and to be better, and to ensure that all of those things actually, mold together. And that we match what we say and what we do, and make sure that we always live with integrity. It's such a powerful conversation today. Another one to add to Knowledge Power. Thank you everyone for joining us today on this episode. But before we go, let me just announce that tomorrow is the Philippines' 123rd Independence Day. So to celebrate our country's 123rd Philippine Independence Day, EVS prepared an exciting event for everyone, especially our EVS community. It is our Freedom to Learn 5-day challenge to build a successful career online. Now, it will start this coming Monday, June 14 to 18, with only less than an hour of learning time each day for 5 days. This program guides you through online career startup and improves your resumes, portfolios, and overall online profiles to become a legit service provider. This is free for 5 days, so let's see more about this freedom to learn, to develop further our mindset and motivation, to assist us in our online careers, whether you are a VA, a freelancer, a remote worker, or a work from home professional, or perhaps you may be thinking of transitioning from the corporate world to the virtual world. So that's the link there, but we'll share it also in the comments. So if you haven't registered already, please do so on our Facebook and Instagram. You'll find the links on our Facebook and Instagram accounts, and we'll be posting the link in the comments as well. So that's it for today. Thank you again so much for watching. Maraming salamat to all of our Facebook viewers as well as those who have joined us on Kumu. See you all again for another Empowered episode on our EVS show series powered by EVS. Thank you. Bye for now.